The ferry creaked and rocked gently as it sliced through the calm waters, leaving ripples that shimmered under the soft glow of the setting sun. The sky above was a masterpiece of warm pinks, fiery oranges, and gentle purples, slowly blending into the approaching twilight. Passengers wandered across the deck, leaning against railings, taking photos, or talking quietly among themselves, but one small figure seemed to carry a world of her own. She was a young girl in a wheelchair, her hands clasped tightly on her lap as her eyes, wide and curious, kept darting upward toward the sky. There was a longing in her gaze that made her look fragile yet determined, like a small flame refusing to be snuffed out by the vastness of the world around her. A man in a crisp suit stepped onto the deck, briefcase in one hand and a slight furrow in his brow, as though the weight of the day pressed on his shoulders. He moved with purpose, but the tension in his posture betrayed the hours of endless meetings, phone calls, and decisions he had endured. This was a CEO used to commanding boardrooms and closing deals, someone for whom time was a resource to be measured and spent wisely, yet as he looked around, his attention was drawn to the small figure in the wheelchair. "Sir, can you lift me up to see the sky?" the girl asked, her voice timid yet filled with hope. Her words hung in the air, simple and unassuming, but they carried a weight that cut through the noise of his busy mind. He knelt down instinctively, unsure why this tiny voice had such a powerful effect on him. "You want to see the sunset?" he asked gently, trying to match her innocence with patience and care. "Yes, please," she whispered, and a shy smile flickered across her face, illuminating her features more than the fading sunlight could. He carefully lifted her, feeling her small weight settle in his arms, and positioned her so that she could lean against him safely. Her wheelchair was parked nearby, forgotten for the moment, as she stretched upward, her eyes drinking in the colors of the sky. The wind caught her hair, making it dance like golden threads in the sunlight, and he realized he had never really seen the sky like this in years. He had glimpsed sunsets from his office windows, but they had always been framed by concrete and glass, distant and unfeeling. Now, with her pressed against him, sharing this simple joy, the colors seemed to pulse with life, reflecting in her wide eyes and reminding him of things he had long ignored. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he murmured, his voice softer than he intended. "It's the prettiest sky I've ever seen," she said, her words almost a whisper, but filled with such pure awe that it reverberated in his chest. In that moment, the barriers between their worlds seemed to vanish. Titles, responsibilities, and social boundaries melted away, leaving only two souls connected by the wonder of a sunset and the simplicity of shared humanity. The sky above stretched endlessly, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a lightness in his heart that made him wish this moment could last forever. The sun had dipped lower now, leaving trails of soft orange and purple across the horizon, and the ferry continued its steady journey across the calm waters. The girl still leaned lightly against him, her small hands resting briefly on his arms as if to anchor herself in the warmth of his presence. He could feel her excitement and curiosity in subtle ways, the slight quiver of her fingers, the way her eyes darted from the horizon to the passing gulls. There was something about her attention to the world that made him pause, something he hadn't experienced since he was a child, before life had demanded ambition and efficiency over wonder. "I like looking at the clouds," she said softly, her voice almost blending with the wind. "They look like mountains floating in the sky." He smiled, careful not to let her see how much her words had touched him. "Mountains, huh? I suppose I never thought about them that way," he said, leaning slightly so he could match her gaze. "I usually just rush past them." She tilted her head, considering his words. "But if you stop, even for a little while, you can see things. Things that make you feel bigger than the world, and smaller at the same time." Her insight startled him. It was rare for anyone, especially a child, to express something so profound without knowing it. He realized he had spent years chasing numbers, contracts, and meetings, never stopping to witness the simple poetry of life around him. He let out a soft sigh, the kind that comes when a heavy weight begins to lift from the shoulders without warning. "Do you ever dream about flying?" she asked suddenly, eyes sparkling as she imagined the thought. "I suppose I do," he admitted, surprising himself with the honesty. But lately, I only dream about finishing tasks. Her small hand reached out, brushing against his. Dreams are important too. Sometimes they show you what's worth trying to reach, even if it's far away. He looked down at her, really looked, and saw not a girl in a wheelchair, but a tiny guide showing him how to notice the beauty he had overlooked. He felt an unfamiliar tenderness, a protective instinct that went beyond social expectation. Maybe you're right, he said quietly. Maybe I need to notice more skies. For the next few minutes, they stood together in silence, listening to the gentle lapping of the water against the ferry hull, feeling the wind tousle their hair, and watching the horizon glow as the sun disappeared completely. She leaned against him, trusting, unguarded, and he realized that in lifting her to see the sky, she had lifted something in him as well, the part of him that had forgotten how to pause, to wonder, to hope. I want to see every sunset I can, she said softly, as if making a promise to herself. He nodded, the weight of her words settling in his chest like sunlight. Then we'll make sure you do, he replied, his voice firm but gentle. In that quiet connection, amid the fading light and the soft hum of the ferry, he understood that sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest wisdom, and that seeing the world through someone else's eyes can change everything. Night had fallen over the ferry, draping the world in deep indigo, and the first stars began to twinkle faintly above, tiny sparks in a vast, endless sky. The water shimmered beneath the ferry lights, sending silvery reflections rippling across the gentle waves. The girl's energy had softened now, the excitement of the sunset had faded into a quiet contentment, and she leaned slightly against him as he wheeled her back toward her seat. Yet even as the night settled, her eyes remained wide with wonder, drinking in the sky, the water, the faint glimmer of lights on the distant shore. Do you want me to tell you what I see? He asked softly, kneeling to meet her gaze. She nodded eagerly, her fingers curling around his hand, and in that moment, he felt the fragility of life and the enormity of connection all at once. Carefully, he guided her gaze toward the emerging stars and began to describe them, not as distant points of light, but as stories, constellations dancing across the heavens, each one a little tale waiting to be discovered. See that one? He said, pointing to a small cluster. It's like a little ship, sailing across the night sky. And over there, those 3 stars? They're like children holding hands, chasing dreams across the universe. Her eyes sparkled with imagination, and she leaned closer, letting him guide her through the sky with words. I think I see the ship, she exclaimed, her voice a mix of awe and delight. And the children. They're running so fast. He smiled, feeling a warmth that no boardroom victory or financial report could ever bring. She had transformed the world into something magical, simply by inviting him to share it with her. In her presence, the burdens of his responsibilities felt lighter, the deadlines and decisions receding into the background, replaced by the extraordinary simplicity of wonder. Thank you, sir, she whispered, her voice soft but full of sincerity. I'll never forget this. Neither would he. The honesty in her words, the unguarded trust she had offered, left an imprint on his heart that he knew would last far beyond this night. He realized that power was not measured by wealth, titles, or influence, it was measured by the ability to lift someone up, to help them reach what they could not on their own, and to share in the quiet beauty of life that too often went unnoticed. He helped her settle back into her wheelchair, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Neither will I, he said, his voice gentle, almost reverent. And we'll see more skies together, I promise. She smiled, a tired but radiant smile, and rested her head lightly against him, trusting completely. And as the ferry carried them across the water, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if reflecting the bond formed in that simple, profound evening. In the quiet hum of the engines and the gentle lapping of the waves, he knew that this encounter had changed him forever. The sky was vast, but sometimes, all it takes to see its beauty is someone small asking for a simple favor, and the willingness to lift them up.